Sword against gun, this ronin refused to submit and proved that samurai honor is not dead. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the parched grasslands. In the distance, the sound of rifles echoed, harsh, cold, and unfamiliar to the ears of the older samurai accustomed to the clang of steel. Times had changed. The sword, once a symbol of honor, was now considered an obsolete relic, replaced by gunpowder and bullets. The daimyo began building armies around rifles, abandoning the centuries-old way of bushido. But among the shattered remains of that tradition stood a ronin. His name was only whispered among the common people. Shirakawa Jinzō, a masterless samurai, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and always clad in old, scarred armor. He never acknowledged the changing times, let alone bowed to rifles. Encounter with the New World. The small village at the foot of the mountain was gripped by fear. Mercenaries armed with guns came every month to collect doubled taxes. They shot anyone who refused, and the bodies were left on the road as a warning. That day, Jinzō entered the village quietly. His sword hung at his waist, and every villager who saw him gave him a suspicious look. They already knew, swords were no match for guns. However, when one of the mercenaries pointed his gun at an old farmer, Jinzō stepped forward. "Put down your weapons," he said quietly, his voice like the rumbling before a storm. The soldier laughed, pulling the trigger without hesitation. The crack shook the air. But in an instant, the blade of Jinzō's katana flashed, cutting through the bullet's trajectory. Steel and fire met in a flash of light. There was silence. The soldiers were stunned. Another slash felled the gunman, and his blood soaked the ground. The village cheered, but Jinzō only stared coldly. "As long as you let guns rule, you are all dead," he said before walking away. The burden of the past. In a remote hut, Jinzō sat alone, staring at his sword. The katana had been with him since he was young, a gift from his now-deceased master. He remembered that night of betrayal. The clan he served was destroyed by a neighboring daimyo wielding imported Western rifles. His comrades fell one by one, shot from a distance without ever having the chance to raise their swords. Only Jinzō survived, thrown into a new world where samurai no longer had a place. From that moment on, he swore an oath. He would prove that the honor of the samurai could not be erased by gunpowder. But that oath also meant loneliness. No one believed in the sword anymore. To him, the path of bushido was but a shadow he held alone. The challenging girl. One night, a village girl named Aya knocked on his hut door. She bore a wound in her arm, shot by mercenaries. "Teach me to use a sword," she pleaded. Jinzō stared at her for a long moment. A sword is not a tool for revenge. It is a soul. But without it, we would all be mere victims. They shot us like animals. If the sword is truly a soul, teach me so we can fight back. In the girl's eyes, Jinzō saw something different, the same fire he once possessed. Slowly, he nodded. Aya began to train under his guidance. Though the sword felt heavy in her small hands, her enthusiasm reminded him that samurai were never born from weapons, but from brave hearts. First clash. Word spread of the ronin who dared to challenge the guns. The mercenaries returned, this time in greater numbers. In the village square, they leveled their guns, ready to slaughter. But Jinzō stood before them, Aya at his side, her hand trembling with a sword. "Do you believe gunpowder can conquer the soul?" Jinzō asked. "The soul cannot stop a bullet," the captain replied, then signaled to fire. The gunfire echoed in unison. Dust flew. But Jinzō was already moving, his body darting through the flashes of fire. His katana spun, parrying, cutting, stabbing. Several bullets escaped, ripping through his shoulders, piercing his shield. But he didn't stop. One by one the soldiers fell, torn apart by the blades that danced like a hurricane. Aya watched, wide-eyed. She wanted to join him, but her steps were still unsteady. Jinzō glanced back, signaling, "Your time hasn't come yet." A bitter victory. The battle was over. The ground was covered in blood and gunpowder. Of the 20 warriors, only one remained, their captain, terrified to death. Tell your master, Jinzō said, raising his blood-dripping sword, that the sword is not dead. I will come to him. The captain fled, leaving a terrified shadow behind. The village cheered, but Jinzō knelt, holding his wound. Aya approached him, fighting back tears. Sensei, you are badly injured. Wounds are just part of the path, she replied quietly. But you must learn, Aya. Today, I am protecting you. Tomorrow, you may be the one standing here. The road to the castle. News of the mysterious Ronin's victory spread quickly. The daimyo ruling the region was furious. He mobilized a full force, armed with Western rifles, to hunt down Jinzō. But Jinzō didn't wait. He marched toward the daimyo's castle alone. Aya, despite being forbidden, followed him at a distance. Along the way, they passed burned villages, their inhabitants shot mercilessly. Aya gripped her sword tightly, her heart filled with rage. Look closely, Jinzō said. This is a world where honor has been replaced by gunpowder. If you wish to fight it, don't let anger rule. Let your sword speak quietly. The final battle. That night, Jinzō stood before the castle gates. Hundreds of soldiers waited inside, their guns pointed at him. A simultaneous boom filled the air. Jinzō's body moved like a shadow, his sword glinting in the moonlight. Dozens of bullets were deflected, dozens of bodies fell. But the longer he fought, the more wounds he sustained. Amidst the chaos, Aya dashed in, slashing with stiff but courageous movements. Some of the soldiers were surprised by her determination, and Jinzō smiled faintly as his student began to understand the meaning of the sword. Finally, they reached the main hall. The daimyo sat on the throne, accompanied by a few of his last guards. In his hand, not a sword, was a golden pistol. Old samurai, he sneered. You fight for honor that is already dead. This world belongs to gunpowder, not swords. Jinzō stepped forward, blood dripping from every wound. As long as there is one soul who believes in the sword, this world is not truly yours. The pistol bullets whizzed by, but with a final movement, Jinzō slashed, breaking the gunfire and cutting down the daimyo in one swing. The end of the ronin. Silence enveloped the hall. The daimyo fell, his golden gun released. Jinzō stood for a moment, then his body faltered. Aya immediately restrained him. Sensei. Jinzō looked at his student, a faint smile appearing on his face. The sword does not die, as long as someone inherits it. Continue on this path. With those words, his body finally collapsed. Aya hugged him, tears fell down her face. But in his heart, he knew, the spirit of the ronin now lived in him.